Big Wave Award winners, AG2R arrivals, Antigua Sailing Week. And now in the newsroom, here is Mia Chanan. NC Sports, plunge into the action.
Welcome back to NC Sports. I'm Mia Charan, and from California to the Caribbean, and then all the way back across the pond to Europe, top water sport events are now taking center stage. So let's check out today's lineup. In a unique El Niño winter, surfing's bravest are celebrated at the WSL Big Wave Awards Gala in Anaheim, California. It's all happening in the Caribbean as Chabagny and Tabarly are first across the finish line of the AG2R in Saint Barth. Partying and racing at the 49th Antigua Sailing Week, and Portugal's Frederico Morais wins the Martinique Surf Pro. Meanwhile, back in Les Sables, Anthony Marchand clinches victory at the Solo Maitre Coq, and pro kiters split the win in a windless Leucate. Plus, so much more coming up. They are considered the bravest and possibly even the craziest surfing tribe around, chasing and challenging the towering waves of the world's top spots. Legendary names like Jaws in Maui or Chapu in Tahiti were thanks to the unique weather conditions generated by El Niño this year, the swells reached unbelievable heights. Well, the tribe met up in California for its annual bash, so here are all the winners in today's top story.
In a spectacular year marked by the powerful forces of El Niño, the WSL Big Wave Awards took center stage last Sunday in Anaheim, California for this yearly Daredevils evening gala.
It was amazing. Just I think based on how great the waves were, at all the venues, especially at Peahi, and to kind of be remembered, I guess, as the big wave champion of the historic, what will certainly be remembered as the historic 2016 winter.
Nearly 500,000 fans have been following developments on Facebook, Twitter, and other major social networks, and this year's Big Wave Awards ceremony took on a special significance for women's surfing, with Brazilian-Hawaiian Andrea Moller taking home the women's performance category, and Kiala Kennelly making surf history by winning the mixed gender barrel award.
It means a lot. It was the biggest winter of the year. And to win the performance of the year, to be able to, first of all, catch one of the biggest waves ever, it's just, an honor. I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to be a part of this group of women that are charging out there, and I think we're breaking new barriers.
To be nominated in a men's category and win an award that has only ever been won by men is just like a whole nother echelon of amazingness, and this is probably one of the biggest moments in my entire surfing career.
Shane Dorian nailed the 2016 Ride of the Year with this remarkable performance at Jaws in February. This is his second consecutive victory and among an all-Hawaiian roster of 5 nominees.
When it kicked in, how hard it kicked in, and just bang, 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 all these giant swells, and they just wouldn't stop, and they wouldn't get downgraded, and they wouldn't get windy, and it was phenomenal. It was just firing on all cylinders.
Two more Hawaiians received top awards with a phenomenal ride at Jaws. Yuri Soledade clinched the XXL Big Wave Award, riding a measured face height of 73 feet, or over 22 meters. Then Aaron Gold picked up the biggest paddle award for his ride in Maui last January. Well, Nicolo Porcella was awarded for the biggest wipeout of the year at Tahiti's Tiapu.
The wind has not been cooperating with the IKA's newborn World Kite League, as conditions unfortunately came to a standstill in round 2 at the Mondial du Vent in Leucate. In the first days of this Grand Slam, speed riders got to finish their runs, but while freestylers did get plenty of amazing action, in the end they had to split the prize. Big air specialists in the meantime are still waiting to take flight for their official World Championship.
As reported last week, atypical weather conditions in the south of France this April were threatening an early stop to competition at this year's 20th edition of the Mondial du Vent and round 2 of the World Kite League. Things didn't get any better over a windless weekend, with the entire community glued to the Facebook page in wait for the official go-ahead, which never came. When all hopes faded, the decision was inevitable. The freestyle event title had to be split among top riders on the leaderboard, based on the results posted in the first 3 days, and sharing both a cash prize and valuable IKA World Championship points. In the women's category, the list now includes the top of the WKL rankings of Bruna Kaja, Annabelle Van Westerop, Paula Novotna, Hannah Whiteley, Estefania Rosa, and Pauline Valissa. Making it past the quarterfinals, only 4 riders got top honors among the guys, with Yuri Zun, Alex Pastor, Stefan Spiesberg, and Carlos Mario putting on the show and all taking home the event title. Big air competitions have yet to take place this season since wind conditions were also weak last month during round 1 in Egypt's Laguna. So the WKL 2016 World Championship leaderboard for the discipline is currently still blank. All bets are on now for round 3 scheduled for Dakhla in Morocco coming up in mid-June, where the wave specialists will also kick off their season.
Best of luck with plenty of wind then to all the pro kiteboarders as they move on to round 3 of the WKL. NC Sports, of course, will keep you up to date with news and exclusive insight throughout the World Championship season. We've got winners across continents and disciplines because some of the stories we've been following over the last few weeks have now finally reached their epilogue. 3 locations: Martinique, Saint Barth, Les Sables. Coming up next on the NC Sports Brief.
Portuguese surfer Frederico Morais captured his first ever QS win at the Martinique Men's Surf Pro at Bass Point last weekend. With a total score of 16.66, the talented rider from Cascais beat out runner-up Spaniard Goni Zubizarreta, who racked up 14.3 points in the final, played out on solid 3 to 5 foot rollers. Brazilian David Silva and Australian Luke Hines shared the 3rd place slot. Morais' win catapults him from 160th to 13th in the overall 2016 men's QS rankings, bringing him that much closer to the coveted top 10 who will earn the right to participate in the 2017 Championship Tour. 140 surfers from 5 continents took part in the 2nd edition of the Martinique Surf Pro, the only Caribbean leg of the qualifying series.
A 5-day drag race across the Atlantic delivered a grand finale in Saint Barth last Monday afternoon at the Transat AG2R La Mondiale, as the leaders reached the Caribbean lined up from north to south and at full speed, just 45 minutes apart. Sheepdog tactics paid off for Thierry Chabagny and Tabarly on their jeudi mat, who got to check their rivals' moves as they took the middle route all the way to victory. But this was one close and unpredictable race to the very end. In a final dip towards the island from the north route, Agir Recouvrement with Adrien Hardy and Vincent Biarne snatched 2nd place from Nicolas Lanvin and Gildas Mahé on Generali, just 25 nautical miles from the finish line.
After a tough week of racing off the shores of Les Sables d'Olonne, France, skipper Anthony Marchand has captured top honors at the 2016 Solo Maitre Coq. Racing on Ovimpex Secours Populaire, the former dinghy sailor and Vendée Globe competitor registered superb performances in the first 2 days of inshore competitions and placed second in the 350 nautical mile distance challenge, earning the best overall score. Local sailor and fellow Vendée Globe skipper Benjamin Dutroux had the fastest time in the long distance, but didn't manage to make it past 5th place overall. Corentin Duguay, racing on Sofinter, a jersey for life, took the number 2 spot on the podium, while Damien Clorac, racing on Safe Rail, came in 3rd. It was Marchand's first win on the French Figaro-Beneteau circuit.
More spectacular events coming up in the second part of this edition, with some smooth sailing from Antigua, grueling sup racing in North Carolina, and fleet racing in Israel. We'll be right back on NC Sports. As you've seen here on NC Sports, from sailing to surfing and even to the jet skis, the Caribbean has really been the heart of the action over the last several weeks. Now, given the winter weather, it's no surprise that every year it kicks off the season for these and many other sports. Some events, however, do stand out both for their tradition and that special local feel. Antigua Sailing Week is now wrapping it up.
Whether there's more partying than sailing is still up for debate, but tracing nearly half a century of the sport in the Caribbean, Antigua Sailing Week remains one of the most iconic regattas on the calendar. It all kicked off last weekend, first with the Guadalupe to Antigua race and some tight competition for CSA racing classes, between Ken King's 72-foot El Oro winning on corrected time ahead of Adrian Lee's Cookson 50, Lee Overlay Partners, and James Kilroy's legendary Kealoha 3. The SNS 78 here led by Jorge Madden that held the Sydney to Hobart record for 21 years. Herbert Noonson took first in the CSA bareboats with a Dufour 44 KH plus P Cayenne. The fleet then beefed up for the Round Antigua with 42 yachts, and 5 CSA classes were on the start line. 15 to 20 knots of wind made for the perfect challenge, and another duel soon developed, with TP52 Gladiator, owned by Tony Langley, taking the lead for the Racing 1 division, in both real-time and handicap, and Peter Brun with a Tonnerre 4 crew. Brazil's Renato Cunha Faria took the second division with Ventaneiro 3, and Ross Appleby won the CSA 3 on Scarlet Oyster. The overall winner of this 49th Antigua Sailing Week will be determined by a series of inshore races mixed with concerts, themed parties, and a packed schedule of dockside events moving up to this weekend's prize giving.
The great thing about many of the events, or even most of the big circuits featured here on NC Sports, is that at one point in time, they were just a small-time local happening. It was probably like that for Antigua Sailing Week when it began back in the 1960s. Then year after year, these grew from maybe just a wider group of friends to something quite unexpected. Well, that's clearly also what happened at the Carolina Cup 2016, a real grassroots venue open to all and a new epicenter for the SUP revolution in the USA.
Stand-up paddlers from around the globe were out in force again this year for the West Marine Carolina Cup at Wrightsville Beach, California. Now in its 6th edition, the week-long SUP extravaganza attracts the who's who of the pro circuit while also providing a forum for amateur and local paddlers.
Every year, as when the race gets closer, I see on social media a lot of the local paddlers, this is their race, because they enjoy the sport and they love seeing the elite athletes and people coming from all over the world for the race. And so, yeah, there's definitely local pride.
Of the numerous races taking place, the infamous Elite Graveyard Challenge, a 13.5-mile gauntlet across ocean and flat water, takes center stage. This year, it was Frenchman Titouan Pouilloux' turn to shine as he beat out an impressive roster of the world's best paddlers, including last year's champion Travis Grant, to claim his first Carolina Cup victory. In the women's division, Annabelle Anderson of New Zealand grabbed her 4th consecutive win, finishing a full 5 minutes ahead of runner-up, Californian Candace Appleby.
Olympic medalists and world champions recently met up in Israel for the RSX World in Eilat, a sensational event in the Med and for many a decider for a ticket to Rio 2016. Relive this spectacular event with drone cams, 3D graphics, and expert commentary. It's all coming up in the 2nd episode of the Fleet Racing Tour 2016, airing on Nautical Channel on Saturday, May 7th at 9 p.m. More top events coming up in the next few weeks as the America's Cup goes back to the Big Apple. Well, almost. The WSL Championship Tour moves to round 4 in Rio, and Slovakia holds the ICF Canoe Slalom Europeans. Here are all the details on the NC Sports calendar.
The America's Cup returns to New York for the first time in almost 100 years on May 7th and 8th, even if it's just for the World Series on the 45s. 6 teams, including defender Oracle Team USA, Emirates Team New Zealand, Land Rover Bar of Great Britain, Artemis Racing of Sweden, SoftBank Team Japan, and Groupama Team France, will compete in 2 days of fleet racing in front of Battery Park. Points earned will count towards the final competition for the 35th America's Cup in Bermuda in 2017. Emirates, helmed by Kiwi sensation Peter Burling, leads the series thus far with 192 points, chased by Oracle at 186 and Land Rover with 185. Round 4 of the WSL Championship Tour gets underway with the Oi Rio Men's and Women's Pro in Barra de Tijuca from May 10th to 21st. Will the Brazilians be able to get back in the game on home turf after a series of lackluster performances down under? Or will new entry Matt Wilkinson continue to dominate? Watch out for current WSL QS number 1 Leo Fioravanti, admitted to Rio on Taj Burrow's retirement ticket. On the women's side, will Tyler Wright continue to close the gap on Courtney Conlog? Or will Stephanie Gilmore and Carissa Moore manage to make a final after being shut out during the entire Australian leg? Given all the surprises of the 26th season thus far, only one thing is certain: anything can happen. premier kayakers and canoeists will gather in Liptovsky, Slovakia from May 12th to 15th for the ICF European Canoe Slalom Championships. In this discipline, paddlers must navigate their kayak or canoe through poles or gates set up over a 300-meter stretch of rough water. If a pole is touched or missed, penalty times are added to the total time achieved. The Liptovsky event is the sport's final key qualifier before the upcoming 2016 Olympic Games in Rio.
Well, that wraps up another sensational week for water sports around the world. And as we've just seen, plenty more is on the horizon. We'll be bringing you all the latest developments in the coming editions. In the meantime, here are some of the latest images just in from Saint Malo during a prologue of the legendary The Transat. And as the cream of offshore solo sailing gears up for Sunday's start, I'm Mia Charan, and remember, plunge into the action with NC Sports.